Well, I got to be honest. I was a little greedy, same as you were quietly last night. I hoped that 3 Point would get in. I hoped he'd race awesome, and he did race awesome. Of all the fourth place finishers, he was the fastest. Now, some of those stake races go by fastest fourth place finisher. I think it is fair to go by highest money earner. It's only fair. So duly resolved, I suppose, is going to get in. So a number of things going on with 3 Point going up. You guys, I had told you in the last video, a few specks of blood in his throat last time he raced. And I wasn't really that worried about it, but he was in retention last night. I didn't know how he'd handle the new surroundings. He raced great. You know, I talked to James after the race. He goes, man, he said, he's going to be a super 3-year-old. He said he trotted as hard as he could the entire way, right through the wire, which this is what we wanted, right? I know somewhere in the back of my head I'm saying, I wish we'd one more fast mile in him. I wish we had him ready 1 week earlier. I just don't think we could have, right? For the horse. Not because we were tardy getting it done, but just a timeline that 3 Point Blue Chip himself presented to us. That's the best we could do. And I guess it's wonderful to have a nice 2-year-old, but the thought of having a top flight 3-year-old is impressive in its own right? So going back to what I'd said after his last start, not the one where he was 9th, the start before, even when he won. I told you, we've been scoping these horses. Hey, that's enough. We've been scoping these horses even when they won sometimes, just to get a baseline, just to say, okay, what's going on in that throat after the horse races? And there were a few flecks of blood. Nothing to really be concerned about, but there were a few. So last night, the horse raced great. James told me, man, he said he's going to be a nice colt, and we talked about him for a while. He said he's really come a long way. And I said, I might get him scoped. And he goes, he didn't bleed. He said, there's no way he bled the way he raced. He raced fantastic. He said, you know, those other colts just have a lot more experience. And it's not experience like in-race experience. It's that speed, right? That muscle that you put on racing at top speeds. That muscle that you put on racing against the top of your division. When you're at the top, that's a whole other level, right? Not just theoretically, but tangibly for your body, for your muscles. And he's right. They just had more experience, but there's nothing we could do about that. He wasn't mentally ready. Hey, you wait. Ollie, can you let her play for a sec, please, honey? Ollie. So when it comes down to him being ready, that was as good as we could have him. Oliver, it was almost good enough. Just wasn't quite good enough. So we did scope him after, and he did bleed. But if you take a look at the race, in general, on the whole, I'm pretty sure we're not the only ones that bled. In fact, after seeing what I've seen this year, this is the first year in my life where we've scoped to this extent, right? We have more horses than most stables have. We race more horses than most stables race. And the amount of scoping we've done, it's really painted an odd picture. It really makes me take a step back and say, you know, how I feel about racing, how I feel about, about how I feel we're going to treat some of these horses moving forward. We've talked about this over the summer, how we wanted to change the way that we treated our horses, the way we trained our horses through the summer, through the heat of the summer next year into the fall. And we are going to, because I want to keep an eye on that also. We're always trying to evolve and get better. And when we see a colt that races as good as that horse did last night, that did bleed, 2 out of 5. Or as the vet in New Jersey said, 4 out of 10. I don't know if they don't teach fractions in vet school or just don't need math. 2 out of 5 is, it's not alarming, but it is telling. So can we prevent that? Is that something that just happens? We had another Walner that bled like that. Is that a Walner thing? I certainly have no idea. And I wouldn't even utter that out loud. I have no idea. So we are going to change the way that we approach racing next year, and we're going to keep a closer eye on it, compile all the information that we have, and see if we're on the right track. But for this week, this is important. So I had a very lengthy conversation with the veterinarian in New Jersey about bleeders, and it appears she's a thoroughbred vet, so she sees a lot of bleeders. Thoroughbreds, a lot of 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds are on Lasix. You guys follow the thoroughbreds, which I don't, but I do follow the Lasix use for other reasons when I was in politics and when we were formulating the stable and a lot of policies. The alarming amount of thoroughbreds that are on Lasix was incredible in North America. So this veterinarian that was a commission vet last night at the Meadowlands is a thoroughbred vet. So some real good insight from her about bleeders, about bleeding, what she thinks, what she'd like to see, and the rules in New Jersey also. So keep in mind, we are the second also eligible, but we are an also eligible in the Breeders' Crown. We do potentially have the Valley Victory coming up. So these are important questions for one reason. I had to pose to the veterinarian. Should this horse's year be done immediately? She goes, you know what? If you'd have asked me 10, but definitely 5 years ago, I would have said yes. But she said, we've given the thoroughbreds an entire year off, brought them back, and they bled. Not right away, but they eventually fall back into the same routine, right? So my next question is, okay, how do we treat this moving forward? What do we do? I mean, there's not a whole lot left for this colt. The Valley Victory goes by money. But if we enter, we would enter. And if we do enter and don't get in, we get all our nomination and fees back that we paid to get in the Valley Victory. They were fairly substantial. So how do we treat this horse moving forward? What can we do? The things that we are doing to him right now, we had a Flexi Neb, a nebulizer. We had him on. We've treated him the best we can medically that I'm aware of, and that she was aware of apparently, outside of a hyperbaric chamber, which seems a little excessive. It's more of a thoroughbred thing. We've treated him the best we can, and lo and behold, there's a little bit of blood there. Now, the not alarming part is when you look at the race, this happened with Unbeatable Kemp, remember? Scott Zeron got off the bike, said, Anthony, there's no way this horse bled. He raced like a monster. 54-3, last quarter 28-2. He bled bad. 4 out of 5. Straight up Lasix bleed. It'll be the same thing with 3 point. I'm not trying to draw comparisons to breeds or anything like that. I think if you look at the race last night, there's a number of horses where you said, that one could have. I know I'm watching a lot more races now, and I'm watching them saying, yeah, that horse bled. Yeah, that horse bled. And I think it's a little more rampant. I don't want to use the word rampant. It's the first one that came to mind. Rampant in racing. I think these babies are going faster, right? You used to have 2-year-old trotters that trot 57, 56. You had a nice trotter. He trot 58 as a 2-year-old. Now he's barely qualified for anything. You know, that horse raced awesome last night. Trotted 54 flat, 28-2. Raced his heart out. Did what we hoped he'd be. He will be a contender. The horse that won the race has like 9 starts. Like, those horses have been racing at the Grand Circuit level all year. To bring him up and put him into the deep end of the ocean was a lot to ask for him, and he almost answered the bell perfectly last night. Raced good. James drove him good. Gave him a chance. That's all we can ask, and I've been very happy. So, getting back to what we're doing, we did enter 3-point blue chip on Lasix because we had to last night, because if he did draw in, we can't just put him on Lasix. He has to be entered on the program after last night. The way the rules are in New Jersey, you have to be in the state to go on Lasix. So theoretically, last night, if he got in the trailer and went back to the farm at Goshen by Ray Schnicker's place, he'd be in the state of New York. And the way the veterinarian told me, he at that point could not be entered. He could not be entered on the Lasix program. So that's a problem. Also, if we just decide not to race him, right? We put him on Lasix, we don't race him, he doesn't get in the Valley Victory, and we say, you know what? This is a super talented 3-year-old with the entire world ahead of him at 3, and he is, and he does. We can turn him out, bring him back to Ontario, and then when we go to race him in Ontario his first start, because all the rules have changed in all the jurisdictions, and this is how convoluted these Lasix and medication rules are, we can bring him back to Ontario, and then when we enter him, they are going to ask us, do you want to race on Lasix? And if we choose not to at the start of his 3-year-old year, we say no. He doesn't race on Lasix. Now, because he's raced in a jurisdiction where he could get Lasix and he chose not to, he's no longer on the Lasix program in New Jersey either. These are, you need a file folder, I'm telling you what, to go through all the rules for different states. It would be a shame if we just had uniform rules across the board, wouldn't it? So as of right now, this is what we're looking at. 3 Point Blue Chip raced his ass off last night. Raced fantastic. Had a huge race, but unfortunately did not get in the final of the Breeders' Crown. I guess if you weren't going to get in, that was the way to do it, wasn't it? Wasn't like he finished 6th and like, he just wasn't ready. He raced great. He raced fantastic. Fair and square, he got beat, but didn't get beat by much. What was it, a neck? I saw it coming the whole way down the lane. I'm on pins and needles. You know the result. Half of you watch races, you knew halfway down the lane he was going to be 4th, beat ahead or neck or whatever it was. And it was so heartbreaking for me, for you, but the horse raced great. So he raced great. We entered him on the Lasix program. He is eligible to race on Lasix right now if there's a consolation, if we choose to race him, or if he does get in the Valley Victory, but that's 3 weeks away. So we have a lot to talk about, Jason and I and Amy, and a lot to digest. Where do we go with 3 Point here? The field is an absolute possibility, but I would like to have him ready for the Valley Victory if some way, shape, or form we get in. Would like to have him ready. If nothing else, I guess to get our money back. And that would be worst case. So I would like to have 3 Point Blue Chip ready for the next 3 weeks. If he doesn't get in the Breeders' Crown, I see they're riding a 2-year-old non-winners of 2 or 20,000. He fits that easily. I would not like to race him next week, especially since he bled the week after. So the next question is, who do we leave him with? Where does he go? I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to have to talk to Mark. Obviously, he's at Ray Schnicker's barn. I have to talk to Mark and Ray. I have to talk to Jason and Amy and see what we're going to do. But rest assured, I think along that path is where we'll find what we're going to do with 3 Point Blue Chip. He did go on Lasix. He does theoretically have races left. He does not have to race in those races. But if we're planning on and hoping to race him in the Valley Victory, which I think at least in the back of my mind I am, then he should have a prep race along the way, if not 2. So that's where we're at. I'm sure the reason Lasix was put in place was for this very reason. It wasn't necessarily for 2-year-olds. I don't want to see 2-year-olds bleed, but we have had 2 Walners, and both of them bled at the end of the season. That in itself could be telling. So from my standpoint, Addie, where Ollie? What are you doing? From my standpoint, that's the place we're at with 3 Point right now. That's the trajectory we're heading in. We are still pointed towards the Valley Victory, although realistically, it's unlikely that we'll be able to race in it. So we'll see what happens moving forward. That's where we're at. That's how the horse is. Aside from everything else, two takeaways from last night. Very important takeaways. Incredibly talented colt that is only going to get better, and looks like he's going to have a fantastic 3-year-old season. So I guess it's a long time to cross your fingers, but things are still looking good for 3 Point. Yes, I wish we had made it into the final of the Breeders' Crown, same as you do. What's 3 Point Blue Chip look like on Lasix in the Breeders' Crown final? Not bleeding. That's a tough one. Anyway, I'll talk to you all very soon. Hope you're having a great day. It is a great day.